Now this is the one on the right side. It goes on the doorpost on the right side. It holds the D window in. All those other pieces, they call for either 025 or 032. It's kind of funny, they call for 032 for this one, and they call for 025 for these flat pieces. That, you know, this one is bent, and so it's got its own rigidity in there, and so that 025 would be stiffened up by making these bends. But they make that one out of 032, and then some of the flat ones are 025, and then this one is 020, and it's on the door. You come back and forth by it, grab onto it and stuff like that. You'd think it would need to be heavier duty than the rest of them, but it's not. But this one has some pretty serious corrosion around these screw holes here. I didn't even try stripping the paint off of this one. You can see the corrosion underneath the paint right there. I didn't even try stripping this one to check it out. See, it's pretty bad in here around this screw hole. But this is a pretty simple one to make. It's just a regular 90, just a flat bend on there. So I'm going to go ahead and make that, and I'm going to make it out of 025 since I've got the 025 out, and I'd have to dig out the 020 if I was going to use it. I don't think I have any 020. I think I got 016 anyway. So 025 it is. Well, I formed up a new fairing for this back window here, and I made it, like I said, I was going to out of 25 thousandths instead of 20 thousandths. This is the old one. It's out of 20 thousandths. You can tell it's quite a bit flimsier than the new one. But I changed it a little bit. This one doesn't, it has kind of a generic fit, but it fits in there loosely around this window header and down here where this post comes out here, this bar comes out here, and this door stop is. It doesn't fit very tight around those. And it goes up quite a bit higher than the window up on top and lower than it on the bottom. I took measurements off of both this and the sheet, and I come up with this one, and I don't need this round up here because this, well, this door thing is round, is square right there, and so I've cut it square up there instead of round, and then I fitted it down here to around this bar right here where this door stop is. And so it goes just above the window opening here, and just below it down here. That'll work good. One of the things that I noticed when I was working on this, and I hadn't thought about it before, was that this, of course, goes on here, and it screws down into this post right here. And this kydex, where I had it bent around this post, there was a pretty good gap, a quarter of an inch, almost half an inch up here at the top. So that would have kind of messed that up. So I clamped on a piece of wood back here on the back side of it, took the heat gun and heated that up and reformed that bend, so now it'll pull in tight against that post. And I want to put this fairing on there, put the screws in it, it'll pull in tight there. Well, this fairing actually looks pretty good. I think it looks better than the old one, and it fits in there better, of course, and it's a little heavier material, so it's not quite as flimsy. I was kind of worrying about that. Now I get a bulb, a weather stripping that goes in between these interior panels, and it goes underneath this panel and up around the top up here, and that's what kind of helps seal in the door. That's what this is going to do. This is going to clamp down on that. I'll put the flange on that bulb in there, and the screws will then hold that down as it goes around this portion right here on this window post. Of course, then after bending this thing in so it fit tight, rebending this kydex, then it stuck out past this window post quite a bit. I tried to figure out some way to cut that off there, and I couldn't use any of the shears in there. I just couldn't get them in tight enough for it, so I thought I was going to have to take this whole thing off. But I decided to use a Dremel tool with this fiber cutoff wheel on it, and went up and cut it down there. I just went up by eyeball, and to keep it from cutting into this post, I just put a piece of this scrap aluminum in there behind it, and then I could feel it when it got into the aluminum, and I just cut a strip off of that, and then trued it up with a file, put screws in there to hold it down to the post. And so I need to locate those screw holes. Well, to do that accurately, I needed to set this up there, and this flange around the window and everything was interfering with it. I wasn't exactly sure where it was going to go, so I wanted to put the window in so I could locate this and get those holes located in there before I take this down and paint it. Well, I put the window in. I wanted to try to do something to seal that window up, but I don't want to use anything that glue like RTV or anything like that to put around that. I'm going to go down to Napa or the store and see what I could find down there. And I remembered I had this zinc chromate seam paste. Had it for years. Used it for repairing floats and stuff, doing patches on floats and whatnot. I think we used one tin of it up, rebuilding a set of floats one time. This is some more stuff that I had. It's been on the shelf for a long time, and a lot of the mineral spirits and stuff have leaked out of it. I thought it would be ruined, but it's actually in pretty good shape. It's actually pretty soft. Anyway, I took a little bit of this stuff, put in this channel for this window all the way around, and then slid the window in. Well, when I was fitting these windows in, not these new windows, the old windows, when I was fitting everything in there before I covered it, it was pretty tight going in this channel. And I knew that once I got, well, that Kydex panel on the inside and this fabric on the outside, that it was going to be a real bear getting that window in there. So I went through these window channels with a wedge, wooden wedge, and pulled these channels out, opened them up quite a bit. Once I got that window in there, I wanted to tighten it back up again. I got this quite a while ago. It's a plastic end for a rivet gun, and I got my number 2 rivet gun out, and I put this on there and went around and kind of formed that window channel back in tighter. It's still not as tight as I'd like it, but I got the cavity all sealed up with zinc chromate paste all the way around. The zinc chromate eventually will dry out and crack out as the mineral spirits or whatever, linseed oil or whatever that's in it dries out. But it's not going to glue everything down. It actually kind of lubricates this window a little bit, and it seals it up pretty good. It'll keep any water in there. It's also corrosion resistant, and it gets down into the cracks and cavities that has left in this thing from the window being in there, and it'll fill those up and keep them from filling up with water. That should help in the longevity of this airplane. It's already going to live longer than me, I suppose. I put this fairing up on here and held it with some of these Harbor Freight spring clamps. These are the large ones. These actually turned out to be a whole lot better than I thought they would be, just cheap plastic clamps, but they seem to work pretty good. Anyway, I held this on here with a couple of those and then marked the center line of this tube that runs up through here, projecting off of this tube that comes where the doorstop is and this upper window bar, and run a line down there for that center line of that tube, or near that center line. And then I drilled number 40 hole in this tube. I measured them, and it came out even numbers if I went 3/4 from the end of each end, and then 4-inch spacing on there. I wouldn't have minded had closer spacing, but the 4-inch spacing come out nice and even and neat. Then I clamped this back up here with those spring clamps and drilled the holes through this tube. Now this tube is a round tube that goes up here. This is the main tube, and then it's covered with a little square fairing around it, a steel square, and they don't always line up center to center on those, so sometimes you wind up going through that tube at an angle, but this one lined up pretty good. So I drilled those holes through there with a number 40 drill, and you drill them in through the metal, and then you think you're through, and then the tube is underneath that, so you just got to keep going. And the tube is actually pretty hard. This little fairing around that tube, the steel trim around that tube is relatively thin and soft, and the tube is 4130, so it's a little harder. This top one, it was kind of at an angle, and I wound up breaking off a drill bit. I had to pull it out. Fortunately, it didn't get stuck in the hole, and I got another bit and finished the hole out. But this one, I don't know whether there's weld slag or something inside of there, but something in there made it a lot harder. It was more grabby and harder than the rest of them. Then I tapped these out with a 440 tap, and all of these lower ones went pretty easy, but this top one was kind of a challenge. And I've got this neat ratcheting tap handle that I bought. Sometimes you just can't get in on you can't make a turn on a regular full tap handle, and like in here it's interfering with this window frame, so you can't make a full turn on that. So this ratcheting handle came in pretty handy for that. And again, all the rest of these went pretty easy. They tapped pretty easy, but this one, there was something in there, like I said, a weld or something on there. Anyway, I had a hard time going through there with that tap. Real careful with it. I didn't want to break it off in that hole. I got it through, and that one's tapped now. I put 440 screws in each one of these, except this one. I just got done with this one. And I'll pull that out and put a screw in it just to make sure the threads are clean on it. And I'll reverse this ratchet, and then I can just bring this right out. I had to stop several times and back it and clear the threads, and was real careful going through it. There's what it is Schnoder, made in Germany. It's a really nice little, but it's a small tap handle for small taps, but it's really nicely made, chromed, really pretty little tap handle. It works pretty good. It's got a fairly fine ratchet in it. I don't know what degrees that is, but it's fairly fine. So, anyway, those holes are drilled in there. I'll have to enlarge the holes in this Kydex. That much is done. Now those holes are in that one, and that one I can clean up and paint. There's that right rear window fairing mounted up. It looks pretty good, I think. I'm going to need to trim it out just a little bit more down around this door post where the door goes up against there, the door latch part, and then a little bit up here underneath the window, the main door opening. I need to trim that down just a little bit more, but otherwise it looks pretty darn good, I think.